Last weekend I went to my friend Rachel's bachelorette party and I offered to make a custom whiskey cocktail for her, and she loved it so much that she is now making it her signature cocktail at her wedding. So let's talk about that cocktail and I'll give you the recipe. Welcome back everyone, I'm Robin from This Blog's Neat, and yes, I'm in my hot tub right now, but I don't often make cocktails, you guys know this, but when I do, I want them to be really simple, very delicious, and I want them to emphasize the spirit that I'm using. So a couple weeks back, Jerry and I hosted a cocktail night where we had 5 different cocktails that we were serving our friends. One was a vodka based, another one was a gin based, we had a rum based, a whiskey based, and a mezcal based cocktail. So a nice variety, and they were all citrus themed. That was the theme of the weekend. So when I was going on Rachel's bachelorette party, I had a ton of citrus to play with, and that's what I wanted to go with for her signature cocktail. Now, one of the cocktails that we had at our cocktail night was Donga Punch. This is a rum-based cocktail that specifically calls for rum agricole. I used a rum agricole that I had oak infused. This was Trois Rivières, and I oak infused it with some charred French oak. So this rum had not only the fun, fresh grassiness that comes from a rum agricole, but it also had some of those baking spice notes that come from using French oak. And the cocktail was amazing. However, Rachel is not a rum fan, she is a whiskey fan. So I created a custom whiskey blend using 8 different whiskeys, mostly bourbons, that would play into the flavor profiles that she enjoys while also bringing some of those characteristics that would make it similar to the rum agricole that I was using. So the first whiskey that I chose was Starward Solera. Now Starward ages their whiskeys in used red wine casks, and being that they are in Melbourne, there's a lot of oak influence even though those casks are used, because of the heat. The high temperatures in Melbourne cause the whiskey to have a lot of barrel influence. And there's also a lot of red fruit notes, and Starward just happens to be one of Rachel's favorite whiskeys. So I started with that as the base. I then added some Buffalo Trace, because who doesn't love the balanced flavor profile of Buffalo Trace? I added some Isaac Bowman, which actually is redistilled Buffalo Trace that's then port finished. So you're getting some of those fruity notes as well that play along with the fruity notes in the Starward. I added some Woodford Reserve, which is like adding in vanilla. I added in Blackened, which to me gives you a lot of these rich tobacco notes. What else did I add in? Oh, I'm remembering off the top of my head. Starward, Buffalo Trace, Isaac Bowman, Woodford, Blackened. What was the other? What was the other bourbon? One other bourbon that I have to think of. I also wanted to get some spicy notes in there as well, so I added in 2 different ryes. One was Rittenhouse Rye, which to me just has your classic, very spicy caraway forward notes in a rye. And I also added Ragtime Rye, which to me has a lot of graininess and really fun grain characteristics to it. And there's one more bourbon, and hopefully I'll remember and get back to it. Starward, Buffalo Trace, Isaac Bowman, Woodford, Blackened. Oh, there must have been something else. But what was it? I think there were 8 whiskeys in there, and I can't remember what the 8th one was.
1 hour later.
The bourbon I couldn't think of was Old Tub, and I chose that for its really nutty flavors. But essentially I mixed equal proportions of all of these whiskeys together in one bottle. So I created this custom whiskey blend for Rachel, and I substituted the whiskey for the rum in the exact same recipe. So if you've never had Donga Punch before, here's the recipe. You start with 1.5 ounces of your spirit. So for the Donga Punch, it is a rum agricole. You then add 1 ounce of cinnamon simple syrup, which I'll tell you how to make in a second. You add 1 ounce of grapefruit juice. and 3/4 ounce of lime juice.
Hey, I'm making a cocktail.
So you shake all these ingredients up. You serve it over crushed ice and with a sprig of mint. Now for the weekend, right, I am not going to be measuring out all 4 ingredients for every single person who wants one. So what I did is I combined the lime juice, grapefruit juice, and simple syrup together. So all I had to do was mix that, so 2 3/4 ounces of that mix with 1.5 ounces of spirit, shake it over ice, and I was dirty dumping. Dirty dumping. So I was dumping it straight into the glass, not over crushed ice, and I was serving with a sprig of mint, and it was phenomenal. In order to make the cinnamon simple syrup, I know there are a whole bunch of methods that are out there. A lot require using cinnamon sticks, which I did not have on hand at the time. I just had cinnamon powder. Cinnamon powder, is that what it's called? I just had ground cinnamon, so that's what I used. And I did a 1-to-1 simple syrup recipe. So 1 cup of water to 1 cup of sugar. You mix those together over the stove, heat it up so that all the sugar melts. And then I added in 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. So the ratio is 1 cup of water, 1 cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon. If you'd like to scale this up, just scale it up accordingly. If you'd like to scale it back accordingly. After that cooled back down to room temperature, I then strained out as much of the cinnamon as I could. Honestly, having a little bit of cinnamon in your cinnamon simple syrup is like not a big deal, or at least to me. I'm sure to some people it is. So whether you are a rum fan or a whiskey fan, please try this recipe out and let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've had a Donga Punch before, let me know what variations you've done. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share this video with your friends. And if you would like to support the channel beyond just that, you can join our neat community over on Patreon. And speaking of Patreon, I do want to give a huge shout out to our Patreons. So thank you guys so much for all your support. You already have these recipes over on Patreon, and I really appreciate you.